Hello, YouTube and Facebook friends and subscribers. We've got 12 right now. This is still the kind of like the pre-production. I'm still getting used to everything. Right now, it's just me, the laptop, and Zoom. Although from the playback, I hear that the iPhone and the iPad actually have better uh, acoustics, audio. I do have a mic. It's still packed. We've got a lot of boxes that are still packed that I need to go through. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of like adding one more thing is because in doing this YouTube is because I've got so much, it's so overwhelming that if I can take it in 10-minute chunks and I can share what I'm doing, that's gonna make the whole process a whole lot easier. I've got boxes and boxes of stuff from my parents' uh, storage unit, and they passed in 2020. I know a lot of folks have had a whole lot of losses the last 2 years, and 2020 was for me, it was in the double digits at least. There's a whole lot of folks that were near and dear to me at one time or another in my lifetime that passed with a 12-month period of time. I used to do hospice work. If you watch my video about Gemma May Comes a Calling, you'll know that I've done hospice work. You might not know, but I did it for decades and decades. Just side things here and there. Sometimes it was just you volunteer for a friend or whatever. Sometimes it was a paid position. And normally it was a side hustle. Sometimes it was a full-time. But I've done a lot of other things too, including substitute teaching, because life has always had some curveballs in it for various reasons. I've always been able to, make a living here, there, and the other place by patching things together. Substitute teaching was one of them. I just found a speech that I did for Toastmasters, just like the Gemma May was originally a speech for Toastmasters. This one was for their new Pathways project. And so it's definitely got the formatting of a Toastmaster speech. What I'd like to do with these speeches as I'm finding them, I'm putting them up for content here, but I also plan to rework them in maybe short story format. So a whole different sort of a way, kind of memoir pieces here and there. And just like this channel, hopefully there's specific things that will paint a picture of a particular time and space. Very anonymous. So if you were a part of it, you would not know when and where. When I was doing hospice work, I did it for decades, so you wouldn't know where that particular scene was from. It could be in one of half a dozen states. Same way with student teaching. This could have happened in half a dozen states, although it is a true story. The anonymity is still there, because not everybody signed up for me to do YouTube. So I'm trying to do it in a way that, honors people's privacy. But it also speaks to a particular that's real. So that kind of gives it an anchoring, but also a universal. So folks that might not know of those particular circumstances can still get something of it. That's kind of the target that I'm aiming for here. I'm still on a strong learning curve. I'm doing this on Zoom, so no editing involved just yet. I may reduce some of these speeches too as more practice pieces and put them on as shorts, but I'm not there yet. I haven't figured out all the things, all the YouTube things and all the, all the Facebook things. I was more proficient at this maybe 10 years ago, before I had my accident. But and for those of you who don't know, I was a pedestrian in the crosswalk and got hit by the car and been disabled since. But those are stories for another day. Today we're talking about what it's like to lead from the back of the classroom. I spent my entire childhood and a good portion of my adulthood in the classroom, as a student, as a teacher, as a participant, as a daycare. Has all kinds of different things. And so you'll hear a lot of that. I come from a long line of teachers, preachers, and healers. Also, you throw in there farmers, but the farming, was everybody did farming back then, right? Everybody had a backyard garden at least. So anyway, let's get back to the 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 the, the speech at hand. I'm going to share my screen. See if it'll let me. I'm going to share my screen, and this is all kind of preparation for next week when I try to do these in, I'm still figuring out the live portion of this. Still trying to wrangle on that. But the idea is 5 days a week, Monday through Friday for 10 minutes at 10 o'clock Central Time. Grab a cup of coffee, have a cup of coffee with me, sit, talk story, as they'd say in Hawaii. I think about, this is the kind of coffee cup my grandma used to drink out of, my grandpa, my Uncle Dan, all those wonderful people who are no longer with me, but I have memories of them sitting there, taking 10-minute break and just savoring every last moment of it, not just the coffee, just the peace and the breathing space and the mental space. And sometimes they would be talking, more than likely just kind of sitting and chilling, but a lot of times those are the precious memories of those folks that would kind of tell me little tiny stories, just little tiny digests of something that they're thinking of, and it alluded to something much bigger. And so teachers, preachers, and healers, that's a whole lot of so if you guys know me as Mrs. Mitchell's daughter, and of course that's what that picture is, that's me as a kid in Vienna High School with my mom, who is in her 20s at that point. She's not 30 yet. What a concept, right? If you know me from that angle, you'll know that a lot of her English teaching had to do with taking apart the story to see what's really going on. There's a surface story. A lot of times it's highly entertaining, but there's all these other elements that when you start to see, you can't unsee, and there's deeper messages. And so, anyway, this is that speech of leading from the back of the classroom, and I credit all the skills that I have in the classroom to not only my mom, but her mother and her mother's father, who ran a one-room schoolhouse for years and years and years with the help of his kids. His kids were like me in the classroom, helping out in all the unseen sort of ways to make things go the way that they should. And my grandma, of course, was my preschool, but every so often in preschool, I would be actually in my mom's classroom too. Anyway, here we go. Leading from the back of the classroom, 6 o'clock, the phone rings on a weekday morning. For quite a few years, that meant one thing to me: substitute teacher gig. Usually by 6 a.m., I'm usually taking my first sip of my second cup of coffee. I'm alert, if not totally prepared, to answer the call. Toastmaster of the evening, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests. How do you feel when a Topics Masters calls on you to give your 2-minute impromptu response? Have you ever been called up at Toastmasters or in real life to give a 5 to 7 minute back pocket or hot seat speech? Now imagine that you get the morning call to spend a day filling a void left in a classroom by their regular teacher. Not for 2 minutes, not for 5 to 7 minutes, but for 50 minutes with up to 5 different lesson plans and up to 150 faces looking to you for guidance. Like all things, the impossible becomes doable with practice and becomes effective with the addition of some self-knowledge, some tricks of the trade. One such morning, many, many, many years ago, I received that 6 a.m. call just as I took that first sip of my second cup of coffee to sub for a teacher in her at-risk classroom. Challenge accepted. Class time arrives. I write my name on the whiteboard. I take my perch at the back of the class with a grade book in hand. Back of the classroom, did I say? Not the front as expected. Yes, and that's precisely why. At least it's one of the whys. It's not expected, it's innovative. As the students file in, I can observe them as they interact with each other and claim their space before the bell rings. I chose a student who I think would have a hard time ad-libbing an insurrection and quietly give them the attendance sheet to fill out and post to the clip that's just outside the classroom door. The bureaucratic functions of running a classroom, I will gleefully hand over to others, not my personal strength. Plus, doing so gives the student a chance to shine with importance. All the while, I'm free to observe. All the while, I'm chanting an inner mantra. What do these students need from me right now? As I thumb open the gradebook in expectation of finding a lesson plan, I'm sorely disappointed. None, nada, zilch. Not the first time this has happened to me, not my first rodeo. So I search for their most recent graded assignments to clue me in as to what to cover. Nothing. This is November. These students need to graduate in June and have nothing to show for their time except for their attendance. At this point, I'm really wanting that third cup of coffee. But the bell rings and the show goes on as it must. This is my circus. These are my monkeys. So what's a ringleader to do but announce the beginning of the games? Who wants to be a millionaire? Who wants to win? Who wants to succeed? Who knows the rules? Who wants to explain them to the class so we can all be on the same page? And thus the team building, the learning, and the success begins. Where am I? I'm at the back of the classroom, like the rudder of a ship heading for its charted destination. Why? Because this hour and the subsequent hours I spend with them isn't essentially about me and my authority. It's about them and their futures and what they need right now to get where they need to be in their lives for their own versions of success. That may be all different places. They may all be at different starting points, but we are in this together now. And I pledge to see them all successfully launched. Who is their lifeline? I am, as I sit perched at the back of the classroom. Toastmasters, for those of you who have already taken the leadership style quiz in Pathways, you can guess my style. Yes, I'm a democratic leader with innovative and altruistic strengths and in need of help on the bureaucratic front. I hope this piqued your interest as to what's your style. More importantly, I hope it prompts you to discover your story as a leader, Toastmaster of the evening. So that is, that's from the new pathway stuff. I didn't stay with Toastmasters too much longer because I'm old school that way, but that was a fun speech to do. So yeah, I ended and began, not necessarily just for this, I posted this picture in twice because I'm going through boxes and boxes of old and deteriorating. You can see how deteriorating these are. Pictures, slides, 8mm reels of film footage. Quite a lot of it is from Oswego High School students, some of it from Vienna High School students. A lot of it also is from trips to Hawaii, both with kids and or with students and as family vacations or family whatevers. A lot of it had to do with accompanying my mom on her NYU study abroad programs with the summers abroad or in New York City. So there's a lot of stuff to cover, a lot of things I've forgotten about. A lot of the things that I want to record and keep record of, but I don't necessarily want my daughters to have to deal with all this because without the context, without this kind of context, it's meaningless to them. They can barely remember their grandmother before she retired. So I'm probably the only person in our family that knows her syllabus. I'm definitely the only person in the family that was a substitute teacher for her. And so some of that is family legacy. Some of this actually goes back further. And as I'm digging, I'm finding stuff that belonged to my grandmother, her dad, and all the way back into the 1800s. um, of that long of teaching, and that long of loving literature, and that love of loving learning. So there you go. Next week, Sunday was my grandmother's birthday. That was the January 15th. Next week is going to be the 2-year anniversary. 2 years, has it been 2 years of my mother's passing? And I'm still woefully in need of sorting things out and getting things together. A lot of things that need, as I said, bureaucracy is not my strong suit, but there's just an overwhelming amount of things to go to, and that's kind of what the YouTube channel's about. Let's get this stuff written down. Let's get this stuff. Let's get a true vision as much as we can of the things that are important, so then we can let everything else grow from there. If you were one of my mom's students, one of the projects that I'm working on is, and you'll see next week if you subscribe to my channel, is I'm going to be doing a series on the Canterbury Tales by Chaucer. It was so my mother, grandfathers on both sides, both maternal and paternal, had folks memorize things for them. But my grandmother's father was a teacher and had part of his grading was that they had to memorize tracts and recite in class. If you've had my mom for anything, that will strike a chord of familiarity to you. And her father's father was a preacher. And of course, he had folks memorizing Bible verses. And he had her singing, and as well as her sisters in as part of the church service. So anyway, little tidbits of knowledge that you might not know even if you knew my family. What I would love to do is have you share your memories of, well, a classroom, what your classroom experiences was like with my mother. Especially what I'm trying to do a call for next week is if you can recite the first 18 lines of the prologue to the Canterbury Tales in Old English. Can you? I bet you can. And I bet you if you can't totally from memory, you can with a little bit of a cheat sheet going on. If you look in my playlist, Nixie the cat, and I did a blooper reel with the first 18 lines. If you want to drop me a line with that, or shoot yourself doing that, or whatever, that would be wonderful. As I said, I'm still figuring out the ropes of this thing, but what I want to do is get somebody who's more professional at editing to me to put together some longer bits, not just the 10-minute bits, but some work using this as raw footage and then kind of going from there. So we'll see how that works. Like I said, this is still really the rough stuff. Hopefully by this summer, we're going to be rocking and rolling with a true intro and outro and good lighting and great sound and audio quality and a fair amount of editing. Anyway, thank you so much for your support right now. Any support you have for me, including those little likes and the subscribes, helps a lot for this channel to grow, and thus helps me be able to spend time dealing with all of the things that archive this kind of material. All righty, well, thank you so much. See you next week, but I'll probably drop a few more videos, rough cuts like this in between, but 10 minutes at 10 o'clock Central Time, hoping if I don't get the stuff figured out by next week. Eventually, the goal is to go live, have coffee. If you guys want to come and have coffee with me, we can Zoom together and we can do it that way. That's an easy thing for me to do because I'm somewhat proficient at Zoom, although they did give me a whole bunch of tools now that I got to figure out. It's like once you get the social media down, they come up with a whole new thing, and keeps you on your toes. Anyway, all right. Well, thank you. Have a wonderful week, and we'll hope to see you soon. Subscribe, please. Thank you. And comment. I'd love to hear your comments. And, oh, did I not? Am I recording? I am recording. Good. Stop that recording.